telling him like, yo, just stop, bro. Just let her go. Just let her go. She in the backseat crying and calling my name. I can't do nothing because he's sitting in the front seat with a gun. I can hear like what was happening, but I couldn't see what was happening. And I couldn't do nothing because I couldn't get out of there. So I just pretty much just standing by the car, just like wishing like it would all stop.
When 20-year-old Melody Hoffman left her house late one night to meet McKinley Louisma, a man that she absolutely believed she could trust, she had no idea of the danger she was stepping into. She had no way of knowing that that would be the last time she would walk through her own front door. Melody was young, she was vibrant, she was full of life, she was caring, but more than anything, she was hopeful. She was hopeful about love, about connection, and perhaps even about daring to dream that she could build something meaningful with someone that she'd let into her world. But that person, beneath the guise of trust and familiarity, had sinister and evil intentions, because the following day, Melody's lifeless body was discovered. She had been the victim of a brutal and senseless act of violence. This is the case that literally reveals the darkest consequences of trust, of being manipulated, and also of innocence being exploited. Before we get into today's true crime case, I just wanted to take a quick breather from the chaos of the real world and to share something that's been helping me switch off lately. Now, you know how intensely I research true crime, and it can get a little bit overwhelming at times. So sometimes, what can I say? I need to escape into something that's just calm and wholesome. This is where Heyday comes in. It's become my little pocket of peace. This sunny, happy world where cows are smiling, my crops actually grow on time, and somehow my pies never burn. I love that I can just dip in whenever I need a break. I can feed my animals, I can make some jam, I can just go ahead and trade with my neighbours. It's really gentle, it's really satisfying, there's no pressure, there's no drama, just really feel good downtime. And I have been building my own farm bit by bit. Honestly, it is such a nice contrast to spending hours reading about crime and tragedy, as much as I love researching the area. But there is just something so ultimately grounding about it, watching everything flourish, feeling like I've achieved something, even if it's just making a batch of butter. And my long-term goal, well, let me tell you, horses. You can unlock them at level 27, and I am determined to get there, because it is literally my real life dream one day to have a real farm where I can ride horses and look after animals. So if you fancy joining me in my little escape from reality, you can download Heyday for free using the link in my description or by scanning the QR code on screen. And as a thank you, I'm giving away one of my alternative Christmas t-shirts to one lucky winner. Just download Heyday using my link, comment your farm's name below, and I'll pick a winner on November the 15th. Let's talk about Melody Hoffman. She was born on the 9th of December 2003. Her parents were Megan and Tyler Hoffman. Her mum worked as an administrative assistant at a mechanical contracting company and was very, very close to Melody. Now, Melody had a mild intellectual disability. This meant that she needed to have things explained in a little bit more detail. So essentially the best way to describe it was a processing issue. It took a little bit longer for her to understand something that would be expected for someone her age. Also, this left a vulnerability within her nature, so she was susceptible to situations that could put her in danger. So she was overly trusting. There is something, isn't there, about people who have intellectual disabilities? That overly trusting nature means that they're just the nicest, most caring, most loyal humans, but it creates this real fracture in their foundation regarding the fact that they have that vulnerability that can be exploited. Because if you believe something that someone says with absolutely no basis for believing it, it can put you in some really challenging situations. Her mum has said that she was just the most caring, bubbly individual. She was somebody that just really liked to help people, to make them feel good. She was very outgoing. She'd chat to anyone, and again, that's a brilliant quality. It's a wonderful quality. It's what we like to have around us, people who make it easy for us because you just chat away. But it also means that if you're not discriminatory about who you speak to, again, that can put you into a position where you are meeting people that are not best for you. Now, her mum said that, to example this, on one shopping occasion, Melody approached an older woman and she basically said that she'd got a really nice jumper on. And this elderly lady was really made up by that. She was really happy. And her mother must have thought to herself, I don't know whether that jumper was one I'd have complimented, because she actually later down the line that day said, did you really like the jumper, Melody? And Melody was like, no, but I just wanted to see the lady smile. And again, it's so sweet that she would have that nature, that she'd go out of her way to try to bring a smile to an elderly person's face by making a lie up about the fact that her jumper was nice. But it speaks as somebody wanting to bring sunshine to this world, doesn't it? Now, on May the 9th, 2017, Melody's mum, Megan, had another baby girl, and sadly, she was stillborn. They actually named her Ellie Quinn Hoffman. So there must have been a deep level of trauma that was going on in the household at that moment in time. I mean, the idea that you have a stillborn child is just tragic beyond measure, and that impacts every member of the family. Now, after she finishes school, Melody goes and attends Kirkwood because she wants to go into medicine. So she might have these vulnerabilities, she might have a mild learning disability, but that doesn't stop her having big dreams. We all know medicine is very challenging to get into, it's very difficult to study, it takes years and years and years. And she did love her time there, but she really struggled to keep up academically, and this means that she ends up dropping out. By this point, her parents have separated, so she ends up living in an apartment with her mother, Megan, in Marion. And it's very obvious when you watch the court appearances of Megan that the two of them are like peas in the pod. They really are. She adores her daughter. They're incredibly close. And she's so positive about her. She said that she was a really good roommate because Melody was incredibly clean. She made sure that everything was tidy. And she never lost sight of her ambition. Yes, she hadn't been able to go into the medical career that she had aspired to do, but she wanted a career where she could help people. So at this point, she starts looking at whether she could work somewhere like a care centre where you wouldn't need the degree that you would need to pursue medicine. So, like I said, deeply aspirational. Now, bear in mind, because she has the issue with her intellectual disability, she ends up going on to disability benefits, but this doesn't stop her from wanting to have work. She volunteers at an animal centre. She also spent a lot of time helping her grandparents. So apparently her grandma had a bad hip and her granddad had a bad back. So she wants to be very present and positive in her wider family's life. And her mum was very clear about the fact that Melody had issues around knowing how to manage certain areas of her life. So Megan wanted to make sure that when she was given money, she controlled it because she wouldn't make smart choices if she had free reign. And I think that's really important because if you are somebody who's incredibly kind and will speak to anyone, well, those predators are going to find you and exploit you. It's as simple as that. And it's very clear that Megan, her mum, was incredibly protective of her. And that will definitely be down to the fact that she had the learning disability, but certainly the fact that she'd lost another child, that's going to add to it because when you lose a baby in this way, as she did to stillbirth, it just absolutely amplifies the love that you have for the children that remain. And don't get me wrong, some mothers just naturally have that connection that's at a higher level than other mothers when it comes down to being involved in their kids' lives. And some children are quite inviting of allowing the parent to have that space and to help make decisions with them. And clearly that's where Megan existed in that space. Now, in October 2023, Melody begins seeing a man called McKinley Louisma. This is her first serious relationship that she'd been in. She'd basically been on some dating apps, which I get is how most people connect these days. And I think it's really positive that the world becomes open to you and the world of possibility of meeting is present in your home, just on your smartphone. But it also means that you often build pictures about who this person is going to be before you've met them. And that can create a bias of belief that's not actually built on firm foundation. It's just the pictures you created in your own head because you want it to work. And then if you meet and get on and connect and are attracted to them, then often you don't realize that you've not done your due diligence. You're just meeting them on face value and then believing whatever it is you want to believe as that progresses. Now, the relationship did get intense quickly. So Louisma meets Megan, obviously Melody's mum. This is very early in the relationship. It's only a short time after the couple have met up for a few times. So clearly she's thinking seriously about this guy. And Megan described him as very helpful, very polite. And when he stayed over with them, he'd help to make food, he'd do the laundry with them. But the most important thing for Megan is that Melody seems genuinely happy and Louisma seemed like a nice enough person. So he's making all the right moves, doing all the right things. So she's not feeling there were any alarm bells going off at that moment in time. But unfortunately, at the start of December 2023, the relationship seems to deteriorate. And at this point, Louisma would tell Melody he's on his way to hers, he'll be there soon, but then he wouldn't arrive for 2 hours, which is really destabilising and really upsetting and provokes lots of feelings such as fear or anger or envy or paranoia. All of these things can be promoted through that kind of experience in a relationship where you feel that you're not being told the truth by your partner. Now, Melody's mum, Megan, she felt from the get-go that he was just playing games with her. And also, he's actually speaking to his ex-girlfriend. So Nakia is his ex-girlfriend, and she's pregnant with a baby that he's potentially the father of. So you can imagine for Melody, this is going to be very disconcerting and very upsetting. And apparently he'd been in an on-off relationship with his ex for around 4 years. So very problematic when you are starting a new relationship if you're having a baby with somebody else, and deeply problematic for the girlfriend in this situation when he may be the father of somebody else's child. Now we get to January the 7th, 2024, and just as happens in lots of breakdowns of relationships, you've each got one another's items and you need to give them back. So Louisma and Melody had arranged to give each other the stuff back. Louisma comes and collects his property from Megan, and Megan gives him his belongings. So it means that Melody and he don't have to see each other. And it's interesting that Megan inserts herself at that point in position because she clearly has got some concerns maybe of a reconciliation. She wants to make sure that this relationship has that full stop after it, and probably for good reason. She's not liked the fact that he's been gaslighting her daughter and he's been with this other girl whilst being with her daughter. So she wants to make sure that he gets it and goes. Now it turns out that he arrives with another white male, but Megan doesn't know who he is. Now bear in mind, like so many breakdowns, there is some bickering between Melody and Louisma over text messages in the lead up to this, but there's been nothing serious. There's nothing that suggests that something untoward is going to happen if she and he meet up at any point. Mainly, they're saying they're not going to give each other the things back. So it's kind of childish in nature, but like I said, you do get petty when relationships break down, particularly if there's a third party involved, because it's really provoking on an emotional level. But like I said, there are no big alarm bells going off at that point. Now that same night, this is at 8:27 p.m, Melody receives a threatening text message completely out of the blue from an unknown number, and it's really threatening. It reads, "Just know that you're a dead girl. Don't worry, when you least expect it, we're gonna get you. Call the cops if you want. They're not gonna protect you all the time, you retarded ass bitch. I hate you, and I hope your fucking family know that you and they aren't safe. God, we're gonna make it red and paint your whole house red." I mean, that is absolutely grotesque beyond belief and terrifying. And it really scared Melody, and Megan also is terrified, so they report it to the police. Now, it's not long after this, and after the pair have broken up, that they end up talking again. And this happens, doesn't it? People end up in on-off relationships because feelings are difficult to dismantle and there's often residue there. And it's on the 16th of February that Louisma calls Melody and says, "Look, come round, come and sleep over at mine." Bear in mind, his parents that night are away at a hotel, but his auntie and his cousins were there with him. So she's not going to be thinking, oh, he's trying to get me to the home by himself without anybody else being around. I can probably go because it's safe. Now, the phone call at this point was on speaker, and Megan was with her daughter at the time. She heard what was being said, and she basically says to Melody, "Don't do it." She does it silently, but she's letting Melody know, don't do it. And the reason that she said that to her daughter is she said she had this really uneasy feeling because she'd had those text messages that had been received the month before saying basically that she's going to get killed and she won't know when it's going to happen, it's just going to happen. Now, it turns out that whether Melody wanted to go at that point, she didn't go to Louisma's house because her mum had advised her not to. Now we get to Saturday, February the 17th, 2024. This is just a really typical day. So in the morning, Melody and Megan go for food, they go for shopping, and then they go to Starbucks. And apparently they were just lounging around, they were watching films, just having this really nice, typical, relaxing day together. Which again, is just absolutely demonstrative of the level of closeness in their relationship. You can just see they're like best friends. And they then arranged to go to Melody's great grandma's the next day. Now, at the end of the day, this is when Megan's in bed, she receives an alert that Melody had left the house. This is just before 11:30 p.m. Now, the reason that she gets that alert is because they both use the app Life 360, and this shows each other's live locations. It means that they receive notifications if either of them leave or enter their house. They also have a blink camera in the living area, and that does indeed capture Melody leaving the apartment. Now, bear in mind, Her mother has concerns about her vulnerability, and it is late at night. Also, not knowing who she's going to go and hang out with is immediately going to be something that causes concern. So Melody has messages by her mum sent, and her mum says, "Are you kidding me right now?" Because clearly they're meant to be getting up the next day to go to the grandparents. So she's thinking, you're not going to be in any fit state to go. And Melody responds, "I'll be back." Megan said, "When? Got your key, question mark." And Melody actually said she hasn't locked the door. So obviously she's left it open so she could get back in. But Megan says it's locked now, of course, because she's thinking, I don't want the door open. You'll be fine getting in. It's just if somebody else finds that the door's open and comes and gets me. She also says, text me when you want in and better not be too late. I'm not staying up much longer. So she's obviously thinking that Melody intends to come back. Melody does tell her that she doesn't know what time she's going to be back, but that she'd let her know. Now, as any worried mother knows, you're anxiously going to be looking at the location that your daughter's at because she's got that Live 360 app and that's what she does. She notices she's gone towards Morgan Creek Park and Cherry Hill Park. Now, Melody does message Megan on Snapchat, this is around 1 a.m, saying that she's on her way home and asking could she leave the door unlocked for her. And Megan can actually see Melody's only a couple of blocks away, so they exchange some messages. This is where Megan's asking Melody to come home. And Melody then sends a video of herself in the back of a car listening to music with the caption, "Late Night Vibes." So even though Megan's going to be a little bit worried, she's probably going to be a bit more angry than worried at this point. She's thinking, just get home so you can get into bed so we can go to your grandparents tomorrow. Now, understandably, that feeling of dread that she had in her belly, that unease that she felt when she saw those messages come through is for good reason. Because at 1:17 a.m, Melody stops sharing her location, then she stops responding altogether. Now, Megan is fraught. She tries to call Melody a few times, they all go unanswered. So she's going to be really afraid. At 3:13 a.m, Megan receives a text saying, "Crash detected, SOS. I called emergency services from this approximate location." Now, this is an automatic message sent by Apple to an emergency contact in response to a suspected crash. So you can imagine how Megan's going to feel in that moment. Now, that location was off Edgewood Road. Melody's aunt, she also receives the alert and she contacts Megan to say that she and her husband were already going to the site of the crash. You can just tell how adored she was as a child, Melody, both by her mother, her grandparents and her auntie, and the fact that her auntie gets straight in a car to go to the crash site just demonstrates that kind of level of loyalty to her. When they arrive at that location, it's dark, it's quiet, they can't see that there's any crash there. So at this point, Megan messages Louisma and wants to ask him where the hell is she because she believes he is with Melody. This is 3:39 a.m. She says, "I need to talk to her now," in capitals, and she also tries to call him. He then replies at 3:56 a.m. saying, "No, she's not with me." Megan then asks him, understandably, "Well, can you try and get hold of her? I've got this notification about a crash," but he doesn't even bother responding, which is weird. If you still have some kind of contact with an ex and you've had good feelings for them and a decent relationship at some point and you find out that maybe they've been hurt or maybe they've been in a crash and you've got people looking for them, you're going to be all invested in helping that person come home. You're just going to drop everything and try your best to help. And he doesn't do that. He just ignores it. Now, around 4 to 4:30 a.m, Megan drives to the location. Obviously, by now, she's absolutely beside herself. She finds where Apple has pinpointed the crash site. She parks at the side of the road. She then sends a Find My Phone notification from Melody's phone, and she can literally hear the alarm from that phone. She follows the sound until she finds Melody's phone face down in the road. I can't even begin to imagine the dread in the pit of her belly at that moment in time. Now, the phone case had actually been taken off, and the back of the phone was extremely shattered and the front screen was cracked. So at this point, she's just desperately trying to find messages on the phone to see where she might be or, of course, who she might be with, but sadly she can't find anything. Now, the following morning, Megan sends Louisma a few follow-up messages saying, "Have you seen Melody? And was Mel with you last night until about 1? Then you dropped her off, question mark." And she tells him, understandably, she's going to call the police. He eventually replies saying, "Yeah, she's not with me. And what's going on? I'm just going to act like I don't know anything." Megan said, at all, question mark, because obviously she's saying, do you know nothing? As in responding to, she wasn't with me, because as far as she was concerned, she would have been with him. And he says, no, because whenever she tells me to come over, I tell her I am not coming over without you knowing and knowing that you'll be there. So basically indicating I would only come over if you were present. Megan then replies, I know you have been here. I've seen you on the camera. That's beside the point. Did you talk to her last night late at all? So she's basically saying, look, I'm calling you out on your dishonesty even in this moment. So you've lied to me about the fact that you haven't come over to the house when you have done when I've not been there. And now I'm saying, are you telling me the truth basically? Did you actually speak to her last night? At this point, he doesn't respond because he's been called out and he realizes that she now knows he's a liar. Now, Megan at this point checks at Grandma's house because she thinks maybe Melody's gone there. She's probably got that desperate hope that she's just got this wrong and Melody's gone from one place straight to her grandparents' house because they were meant to be going that morning, but of course Melody isn't there. And at this point, she does actually report her missing to the police. Now, later on that same day, February the 18th, 2024, unbelievably devastatingly, the body of a 20-year-old woman was found at Lily Lake at the 220th Trail and 38th Avenue in Amana.
I'm actually at Lily Lake in Amana, and it looks like a dead body here. Okay, there's the lily pond? Yeah, right by the, where the picnic area, the pavilion is. The woman, and she's just wearing underwear. Is she breathing? Does not look like it. Okay, so you said that she's on her stomach? She is on her stomach, yes. Does it look like she was in the water? No. Okay. Is there anything else around her? No, but there are all kinds of marks on her back, like scratches.
Immediately on inspection of, at that point, the unknown body, they saw a ligature mark around her neck. They could see that there were burst blood vessels in her face, which obviously indicates that she'd been strangled. Also, just from looking at her body, it was clear she had numerous stab and slash wounds. She had significant head injuries. And it's not long before they break the awful news to Megan that her daughter had been killed. She was able to positively identify Melody's phone case, her glasses, and also a piece of a top that she had been wearing that night. They also found Melody's necklace, and the chain had previously held a locket which contained her sister's ashes. However, the locket was actually missing. In fact, it's never actually been found, so they've never got that piece of her history back. Now, the police very quickly begin their investigation. Time is of the essence, and Megan obviously has given Louisma's name to the detectives, and it doesn't take them long to become very suspicious about him. So at 10:06 p.m. on February the 17th, Louisma had been seen on CCTV footage in a Walmart buying machetes. I mean, if you're not out there on a regular basis, just, picking up a few machetes, what are you doing? Also, picking up gloves. Had two friends with him as well. A little bit incriminating, isn't it? Why would there be more than you? Suggests that maybe there's more than you involved in whatever's happened to this poor girl. Now, one of those young men was Dakota Van Patten. The other was a guy called Logan Kimpton. And whilst they're in the car park at Walmart, Louisma was literally searching for heavy-duty face coverings, heavy-duty gloves. This is all on his phone. So this is really unusual behaviour, particularly the masks. I mean, what on earth are they planning? Why would you need masks and gloves and machetes? It doesn't sound innocent, does it? Now, CCTV footage also showed Louisma driving to Melody's house along with Van Patten. This is just after 11 p.m. And at 11:23 p.m, Melody had asked Louisma when he was going to come and get her on Snapchat. So clearly he's seen her. They also discovered that Melody's iPhone and Apple Watch showed that she was at Morgan Creek Park, and they suddenly see this heart rate increase, and then it just stops. When they search Louisma's vehicle, this is after they've got a warrant to do so, investigators find a bag in the boot of the car. And it's deeply incriminating because in that bag, it contains Melody's phone case, a blood-stained Apple Watch band, clothes that she'd been wearing, gloves, and also a towing rope. They also found a picture of Melody on Louisma's phone, and in that photo, she was bound, crying, she had blood on her face, her mouth was taped shut, and some of her hair was even stuck in the tape that they found. So it demonstrates that they are enjoying this. They have taken time with this. They have humiliated her on a range of levels, including taking photographs of her. She must have been absolutely terrified. On February the 19th, 2024, they bring Louisma in for police interview. He just lies through his teeth. He says that he hadn't seen Melody on the Friday or the Saturday, and they had nothing to do with her disappearance or death. The fact that he's on CCTV buying machetes with guys who were also going to be implicated in certain aspects of her demise, that's irrelevant. He just thinks that he can spin a yarn and they're going to believe it. He also, by the way, denied sending the threatening text messages that she received the month earlier, even though it strangely coincides with the fact that she gets threatened to be killed and then gets killed. Now, as the interview progresses, the officer informs Louisma that they are aware he's not being honest. Just a little bit aware. You're not being honest. Why? It's the court evidence, mate. Just a thing called evidence. Just loads of it against you. Just going to throw it out there. Just think about your car. Let's start with that one, sweetie. But like I said, he's trying to act like he knows nothing about this. But they say, listen, we have very clear evidence that you are at least partially responsible for what happened to Melody. They always do this, don't they, the detectives? You are partially responsible. You're not really a bad guy. You're not a bad guy. I mean, you've just done bad things, but it doesn't make you a bad guy. That's one of the things that they use. And then the other one is, we've got the evidence, and we're not saying you did it. We're not saying you did it. We're saying you could have been involved. Imagine like a ghoul just going around the area. You're there, but you're not directly doing anything. You're just kind of like an essence around it. We're just saying, if you're the essence around it, just describe what was going on within it, and we'll only see you as partially involved there. Clearly, that's how people admit to these things, because they're thinking, oh, maybe the detective's on side, and he's giving me a bit of an entry point here where I can go, yes, I was partially involved, but I wasn't actually really responsible. They're giving them the rope, which they will hang themselves with.
I can't tell, but we broke up in December, December 30th.
Okay. How was the breakup? Good, not good?
It was good for me, but she didn't take it very well.
Mm-hmm. Do you know why? Why did you guys decide to break up?
Because my ex-girlfriend's pregnant, and I pretty much had more intention on focusing on the child and being a father, and she didn't like that. So
Sure.
So I broke up over the phone because my mom would say whenever we get to an argument, do it over the phone instead of being together. So I pretty much was like, hey, I'm coming back, I'm going to go get you something. And then I just left and I just called and said, hey, I don't want to be with you.
Yeah. You talked to her, but did you not see her on Friday and Saturday?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. When do you think was the last time you saw her?
The last time I seen her was that one day I went to her house and we hung out for a bit and I left.
Okay. Forgive me, what would be the purpose of giving a machete for going camping?
I'd probably say protection. So I'm like, hey, if I'm going camping in the middle of nowhere and I can't see nothing, I'm grabbing a machete.
Oh, okay. Okay, but you never wound up going camping?
No.
Okay. And you said the reason you didn't go camping was because of...
They changed their mind last minute.
Now, Louisma tries to say that, well, you might have my DNA on stuff because, I've touched certain belongings. I'm just a touchy person. I go around, I just touch things, probably touching the detective's head. See, got my DNA on you now too. But the officer says at this point, mate, it is way beyond touch DNA evidence. He says, this is a case that's really come together. And it's not so much a question of if McKinley was involved, but truly from our standpoint, it's a question of why. And of course, McKinley Louisma was like, yeah, I didn't do anything. Even though you've got all of that evidence, I did none of it. And you can just see how these criminals play this way. It's almost as if they think, I've watched quite a few interviews online and I've seen that often the police might fabricate to get me to incriminate myself. So even though I know that there's a lot of incriminating information, literally, that I've left in my own car, I'm just going to go down the road that they haven't found it, and that this is just a bit of a game for them where they're trying to make me say something I'll regret at a later date. We see this, and this is clearly what he's thinking he can do, just deny. But it just makes him look even worse, doesn't it, in the long run? Now, later that same day, it's around 8 p.m., Louisma's interviewed again. And he says at this point, you know what? just been reflecting on the interview where I've clearly been completely lying. And in the hours between then and now, I've had these new memories arrive, and I've realised I have left some information out the last time I was questioned. Really? Yeah, I've realised I left it out. Did you purposefully leave it out? No. I just left it out because I didn't remember at the time. Right. Did you partially remember? You like that word partially, don't you? I do like it, because I know that you're a liar. Not a partial liar, a full liar. But he basically says that he went to pick up Melody on the Saturday night along with his friend Dakota Van Patten. And he tells Melody that he's going to drop Dakota off and then Melody can stay at his house that night. And he also said that Dakota wanted to drive around for a bit. He apparently did not want to drive around. He didn't have much gas. He didn't like driving at night. And at this point, Melody was in the back, apparently vibing to music. So they end up driving around for a bit. But then he says things took a turn when Melody and Dakota begin to argue. So at this point, Dakota suggests going to Cherry Hill Park, but then when they arrive, there are people there. So he then says, no, let's go to another park, Morgan Greek Park. Dakota asks to talk to Louisma by himself. So they get out of the car, and Dakota at this point says, I've got a gun, tells Louisma to shut up, and tells Melody to get out of the car. So Dakota tells Louisma to duct tape Melody's hands at this point and put her in the boot. Now, apparently he's being threatened with the gun, so Louisma doesn't have a clue what to do, but to just go ahead and put her in the boot after duct taping her. I mean, this is ludicrous, isn't it? But again, what we're seeing here, Louisma's taking his opportunity to throw all the blame at Dakota. Now, Louisma does start driving the car again, and he says that Dakota then tells him that the reason that he's wanting to do this is because he believes that Melody's got a lot of money because she kept buying Louisma stuff that he wanted from Amazon. And Louisma tells the officers that he keeps saying to Dakota, please let Melody go. But Dakota's saying, well, no, we can't because she'll tell on us if we let her go. I mean, as if this would be the case. As if you'd be in a situation where you'd be driving around with somebody in the car who you've maybe going to rob, and you've put them in a situation where they've been through some kind of abuse and horror, being duct taped, thrown in the boot. That's terrible. But as if that is going to be more problematic than killing someone. As if it's ever going to be like, listen, we need to get away with this. Okay, how do we get away with this? We murder her. I'm pretty sure that murder's more serious than what we're doing right now. No, I'm saying the only way we're going to get away with this is to do the most serious crime of all, so that when we get caught, we can go through an even more serious sentence than we would do if we just accepted the consequences of what we've done now. You know, at the end of the day, it's ludicrous. Now, Melody must have been terrified for her life, and rightfully so. I can't even begin to imagine the horror that she was enduring. She's kicking in the back. She's saying, let me go, and babe, this isn't funny. So obviously in that moment, she's thinking, I'm scared, but this must be a horrible prank, and she has no idea of the serious danger she's in at that moment. Now, his response, as far as Dakota is concerned at that moment, is just to turn the music up so he can't hear her. And Louisma says, I didn't know what was going on. He had a gun pointed at me. Dakota then asks Louisma to pull over. He did pull over. And then Dakota gets Melody out and just beats her up. Also, he makes Melody give him a phone password. He tells Louisma to turn a location off, which apparently he did on Snapchat. And Dakota also asked him to reset the phone, but apparently he didn't actually know how. Then Louisma drives the car to a place near Melody's house, and he says on the way there, he was basically intentionally speeding and braking because he wanted to get pulled over, but they didn't pass any police. So again, he's trying to say, I just was trying my best to heroically prevent this thing playing out, but none of you police were available to come and pull me over. Again, it will be BS, but he's trying to paint the picture that he is fearful for his own life and therefore has no other opportunity or option than to go along with Dakota's plan. At this point, Dakota begins texting Megan from Melody's phone, which is just brutal, isn't it? The perpetrator actually texting the victim's mother, pretending to be her. And whilst he's texting Megan, Melody's mum, is also saying to Louisma, listen, we can't let her go, we'll get into trouble. So then Dakota tells Louisma to drive him to the park again. He does that. And on the way, Melody basically shouts, I've got to pee. So they pull over on a dark road. Louisma apparently went to help her out of the boot, and according to Louisma, whispered to her that he was going to try to untie her. Of course he whispered to her. We know that's absolute lies, but he's just trying to paint a picture that mitigates some of the blame and makes him seem more minimal in this crime. Now, when she was out of the car, Dakota then shoves her again, beats her again, and when they get back into the car, Louisma says, listen, I wanted to sit in the back, I wanted to be more comfortable, I wanted to be able to not feel as much pain as she's going to in the boot, and she was crying at this point, and of course he's trying to reassure her. I mean, I don't know about you, but I don't think it would be very reassuring from the guy who literally lured you to this situation and is with the guy who's clearly been ready for this attack from the get-go. Obviously that's not going to be reassuring in nature, but you as a victim are going to wish and hope and pray that maybe this is going to end at some point soon and not in a way that's going to be brutal and fatal for you. But he also lies and says at this point he's trying to cut the tape around her hands. They did stop the car at one point, and at this point Melody's sick, and she even says, Bubby, why are you doing this? And if you love me, you'll tell him to stop, and please don't hurt me. And I imagine that she did say those things. Then he starts driving around again. Then they stop near a picnic area, and this is where Dakota apparently murders Melody. So he's just kind of remained distinct from the crime itself. He's saying, yeah, I was a driver, but that's the only thing I was. I was scared for my own life, but I didn't want Melody to die. And he's just placing every iota of blame on Dakota. Now, when he's being interviewed by the police, his basic explanation is he just wanted to hang out with Melody. He wanted to show they could still be friends, but it turned out that Dakota Van Patten had different intentions. It's all Dakota's fault. And he said that the reason he brought machetes was because he, Dakota Van Patten, and another guy, Logan Kimpton, had planned to go mudding. Do you know what mudding is? Mudding's driving your cars at high speed across muddy places. Can you just throw it out there? I don't imagine that machetes are required for such an action. I mean, maybe I'm wrong there, but I don't think I am. Now, because obviously Dakota Van Patten has been implicated by Louisma, the police go to take him into custody. When the police arrive at Van Patten's home, they inform him that he's been implicated in a murder, and he asks who said I was involved, but he doesn't ask who had been killed. Also, he doesn't deny any involvement. I mean, if somebody turned up to my house now and I was innocent, the first thing I'd be like is like, who, what, why? That's ridiculous, it's ludicrous. I wouldn't be like, who is the person who implicated me? I'd be like, who the hell died and why am I in the frame? But clearly it's because we know he's guilty and he probably knows he's not going to get away with it with respect. Now, on his phone, he had a photo with Melody's phone password, 9517. It's her sister's birthday, essentially. So you could automatically note that they are aware there is that connection with him being involved in this crime. Also, he'd taken over 200 selfies after the murder. And in those selfies, he's wearing Melody's glasses. He's enjoying himself, isn't he? We're talking like stone cold psychopathic behaviour here. Also, it was found that Melody's phone had connected to his hotspot on the night of her death. So they've got him banged to rights. Now, that friend who went to buy the machetes with them, Logan Kimpton, he came forward and he said that he had been told by Louisma and by Dakota that they had a plan to kill someone. So he is now basically coming out and saying, listen, these guys told me they were going to kill someone. I didn't know who it was, but I don't want to be associated with this crime. McKinley Louisma's trial began in November 2024. The prosecution, they argued that Louisma, Van Patten and Logan Kimpton had been involved in a conspiracy to kill Melody. However, as we know, Kimpton hadn't followed through with this. He'd left after the purchase of the machetes. So the prosecution then alleged that Melody had been killed at Morgan Creek Park during the hour of midnight on the night she sadly went missing. They brought in Dr. Kelly Cruz. This was the medical examiner, and they basically talked through the injuries that Melody suffered. So there was hemorrhaging in the soft tissue of her neck and her upper airway. She had petechiae hemorrhaging, so that's burst blood vessels in her eyes, gums and face. The ligature, which had been used to strangle her, had actually scraped off some of the top layer of her skin from around her neck. So she had a clear abrasion there. and the ligature mark was mostly at the front and right side of her neck. So that basically suggested that she'd been strangled from behind. That couldn't be established 100%, but that was what they imagined had happened. Also, regarding those blunt force injuries, it was most significant to her head. They'd also caused hemorrhaging underneath the scalp. She also had scrapes and bruising on her face. She had sharp force injuries, so stab wounds on her back, her buttocks, the back of her arms, and the back of her right hand. And apparently there was less blood loss than would be typically expected from those injuries. So there is possibility that these actually happened as she was dying or when she'd already died. When it came down to them deciding on her cause of death, it was found that ligature strangulation was the main cause. Also, devastatingly, it was found that Melody could have been in the early stages of pregnancy or even had a recent miscarriage based on her levels of HCG hormone. Just brutal for Megan to realise that her daughter could have been carrying her grandchild. Now, one of the people that they brought into court was Louisma's ex, Nakia. She came in and testified, and she said she had basically given Louisma an ultimatum, rightly so. She said, you have to choose between myself or Melody. And he said that he had chosen her. So that meant that Melody's now a problem. He's with Nakia, and she doesn't want him to have contact with Melody. On the night of Melody's murder, Nakia said that Louisma said he was going to his parents' house, but she noticed he'd left with a ski mask and his work boots. When he came home, this was around 4 a.m., apparently he smelled like smoke, and he's not a smoker, and she said he was acting really weird. So she asked him at this point, listen, is anything wrong? But ultimately he said no. Now, another thing the prosecution showed was that Dakota Van Patten had taken a selfie with a BB gun with Louisma prior to the murder. So that story about the gun is BS. He wasn't afraid of the gun. He knew what that gun was. It was a BB gun. There was no other gun found there. So there was no way that Dakota Van Patten was threatening him with a gun that he knew wasn't going to do him any damage. So, of course, the jury do not accept Louisma's version of events. He's tried to pin all the blame on Van Patten. They've easily been able to disprove it. So when it came down to the verdict, he was found guilty and he's been sentenced to life in prison with no possibility of parole. So the judge actually said that he found this the appropriate punishment for these very violent, very cruel, and completely senseless acts. He said his crimes were obviously devastating to Melody Hoffman's family, but also said that they undercut the safety and feelings of security for the entire community, and that is 100% correct. When people die in your local area in such a brutal way, it makes life feel scarier. Megan, Melody's unbelievably loving and I would say best friend, gave a really emotional victim impact statement. She said, I know Melody would want me to forgive you, and I'm not sure that will ever happen. And if it does, it's only for her, not you. You've taken so much from me, my family, friends, and even complete strangers that have reached out. Melody will live forever in each and every one of us. She will be remembered for the kind, caring, loving, organised, silly, artistic, music-loving, slime-making, selfie-taking, video-making, supper-cooking, animal-loving girl we all remember. Justice will be served to those who deserve it and to its fullest here on earth, but a much higher power will get the final justice. I have no doubt that when your time comes, you will not be allowed in the same place we all know Melody is now, with her sister and our only grandchild safe and far away from everything evil. I will fight every day to keep her memory alive and strong and let her live on as long as I can through me. I know I'm not the only one determined to do this. So from all of her loved ones, we all wish you the life that you deserve until you take your last breath. When I first met you, I only asked 3 things of you. Don't lie to me. You have multiple times, but I see through them. Don't bring your gun into my home. You did, and I kicked you out. And respect everyone and take care of each other. This one for you and Mel. She always cared for you. However, you did not respect or care for her, or you wouldn't have done this or allowed this to happen. You have broken every single one of my rules. You have fucked with the wrong mama. You messed with the wrong family. I'm sorry you felt like you couldn't fit into our family, I now know you could never fit into a caring, loving, supportive family. I'm sorry, you never experienced a family with such strong characteristics. In fact, I don't see any of your relatives here supporting you today. Maybe the issue is you and not the rest of us. I know at one time you asked her, are you scared of me now? And to that I ask you, are you scared of her now? Now that your only view will be obstructed by bars for the rest of your life? I only gave one name to law enforcement during this investigation. Your name. Some call me a helicopter mum. I call it being a loving, caring, concerned, supportive mother. All Melody wanted to do was care for you and support you. She begged me to let you stay with us so you wouldn't have to sleep in your car during the winter. She would frequently ask me for money so you could have gas or food. I want you to think about this every time it's cold outside and you have a warm place to be. Every meal you eat, every time you lay down on the bed, Melody is still providing for you. She will provide those bars you now live behind for the rest of your life. Very powerful. I feel like I could have written that statement if I'd been a mother. And I agree, he ain't going where Melody is now. He's going to an altogether more fiery place. In September 2025, the trial of Dakota Van Patten began. Bear in mind his DNA had been found on Melody's glasses, the inside of gloves, and a roll of tape that had been used to tie Melody's wrists and ankles together, which had been found in Louisma's car, so absolutely implicated on every single level. Melody's mum, Megan, again gave a really emotional testimony, just describing the relationship that she had with her daughter. And she also talked about the relationship her daughter had with Louisma. She talked about the events of the night that Melody was killed from her perspective. She said that on reflection, one of the most terrifying things is she realizes those texts that she received from Melody the night she went out late and was killed weren't even written in a way that her daughter would usually speak. And she hated the fact that she didn't really get wise in that moment to the fact that somebody else was sending those messages. And just to further indicate to the court about how close she and her daughter was, it was shown that she saved Melody's name on Snapchat as Mel, the only one that matters, just to give an insight as to how close they were. She described Melody as her best friend. And it's very clear from what I've described in this particular case that she 100% did consider her best friend, and indeed Melody considered her mother her best friend. Unsurprisingly, when it came down to the verdict on Dakota Van Patten, he was found guilty of murder in the first degree, kidnapping in the first degree, and conspiracy to commit a forcible felony. Now, his sentencing hasn't actually occurred yet. I am recording this in September and it won't take place until November, but I will tell you now he's going to be sentenced to life in prison without parole. This is the mandatory sentence in Iowa for first degree murder, so that goes without saying. Now, of course, there was a third person in this crime, Logan Kimpton. He had been charged with conspiracy to commit a forcible felony, so his trial has actually been delayed and it's due to start in November. But just to move away from the criminals and bring the focus back to what matters to Melody, that innocent girl who deserves so much more, her obituary reads, her love for animals ran deep. Every chance she had to donate blood, she took it. She loved to hear about the impact a donation made. She was the most loving and caring person who would literally help anyone. She knew no strangers, had no fear, and loved everyone unconditionally. What an incredible girl she was. What a beautiful soul she was. And how horrific that her life has been shortened and swiped out by these horrendous monsters. And also, I just can't help but think about Megan. I appreciate that Melody has been and will always be the victim in this case, but the truth is, when it comes down to her mother, this was her daughter, this was her baby, this was her best friend. She's already lost a child in stillbirth, and here we are in a situation where her other daughter has been stolen in the most hideous and traumatic of ways. How do you even begin to gather up your life after losing so deeply, so awfully? My thoughts go out so deeply to Megan. I cannot even imagine how she is continuing to breathe. And I mean that truly, because the agony of living must just be such a burden at moments in time. And don't get me wrong, I hope that she moves forward knowing that her life has got great meaning to all those people who love and adore her. But I think it's going to take a long time to find that desire to experience life in Technicolor, if you ever can again, when you've been through such an ultimate loss. It is unbelievable, isn't it? What did Melody ever do to anyone else apart from be kind? She got involved with a guy who got involved with another girl who decided that she was expendable and that they could have a little bit of fun brutalizing, torturing and murdering her. How is it that these predators find each other and act together? And yet this case examples how it is so. Let me know your thoughts as ever, guys. Loads of love to all of you. Look after yourselves. Be safe. Don't forget, download Heyday using my link, Build Your Dream Farm, and drop your farm name below for a chance to win that t-shirt. It's rather lovely if I say so myself.